How's it going, Yankee fans? Welcome back to Fireside Yankees with your boys, Alex and Ryan. So now that the offseason has begun, we can start to look toward what is about to happen. Now, we know there's a lot of disconnect. There's a discontent within the organization. Obviously, this third-party overhaul, we'll see how that kind of enacts change and sparks some movement in terms of figuring out what the problem is here. Is it the analytics? Is it the decision makers? Is it a little bit of everything? Probably a little bit of everything. But Aaron Boone, is he on the hot seat? Had a couple of words, as he was parting to go into the offseason and kind of reflect on what just happened to this Yankees team and the demise they just experienced. And a lot of the roster construction doesn't fall on his shoulders. A lot of the injuries don't fall on his shoulders. But there is something to be said about failing to get the most out of individual players. There is something to be said about some of the poor in-game decision-making. I think probably when you're looking at Boone, maybe he holds like 15% of the blame. I think you have to look at Cashman, his decision-makers, and at the same time the analytics department as like the brunt of it. But do they use Boone as a scapegoat? I think that's a worthwhile discussion to have. Ryan, what are you thinking right now about Aaron Boone? The front office obviously about to go over kind of have a little bit of an overhaul here. At least we hope so. But again, like they're in control of making these decisions, and like how much can we really trust them to do the right thing here?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that they're going to start relying on, they want to. I guess they're going to, make decisions not in terms of like acquiring players, but I imagine with the hitting coach, it'll be based on what the players like and what the players want. And Sean Casey seems to be a guy the players like. Aaron Judge was very vocal in his praise for Casey. We know that they're talking Judge and of course higher ups. Whether that be Hal or Brian Cashman, they've had conversations in season. They're going to have conversations in a couple weeks, or I don't think those are the exact time frame, but pretty soon is what Aaron Judge said. So I'm going to assume in the next few weeks regarding offseason plans, I think Casey is going to at least be given the opportunity to come back. I know Sean Casey was talking about, he's talking about like going over with his family, his daughters, all that stuff. And I don't think that that's something that we should overlook. I think that Sean Casey having, familial obligations and, being a former player, he retired for a reason, right? Like, at some point you call it quits and you just want to go spend time with your family. And when you're in your playing career, you're robbed of those opportunities typically because you're always traveling and all that stuff. So, ultimately, I don't know if Sean Casey will want to come back based on, just he has a lot going on. He has a lot that I imagine he's dealing with. He has his own family, a lot of stuff. But if he does want to come back, the organization will 100% give him the opportunity to come back. I don't think that they would have brought him in and then had Aaron Judge, and not that they made Aaron Judge praise him, but I don't think Aaron Judge comes out and praises a guy that doesn't come back next year. You know what I mean? I don't think Sean Casey is supposed to be here to like change their philosophy. That's not really something I foresee him doing. That comes a lot of times from higher ups. You have your player development, all that stuff. They are probably the ones that are most involved with like hitting philosophy, all that stuff. It's not like the industry changed very much, or the industry, is shifting at all. It's like the industry is going from home runs to, more singles, or, walks aren't as fast, or whatever it may be. So Casey's just there to relay information. If the players like how he relays information, that's really all that matters. We've talked about this extensively, the importance of communication, the importance of having guys or having coaches and having players make this more of a collaborative process. And if Casey does that and if he enables that for the team, then not only will they bring him back, but I think it'll be the right call. They're, hitting coaching and picking coaches. And this again with, any sport. It's hard for fans to have the decision on that or have an opinion on it because we're not the ones getting coached. The players are, right? So how they react with the players and how they work with the players ultimately, we are not going to ever fully understand that, if you get what I'm saying. But yeah, I think that he has a really good chance of coming back next year, considering, Judge really likes him.
I mean, a lot of the players do. He's kind of a player's coach. But I'll say this, right? When it comes to the hitting coach kind of situation that you just referenced, the question we have to ask ourselves here is, are the Yankees looking to bring in a hitting coach who aligns with what the analytics department wants to do? Or are they trying to change the analytics department to align with what the hitting coach wants to do? So, because it seems like there's just a lack of communication across the board, right? And this is basically Judge threw the analytics under the bus. He said, the Yankees give us the most and best data that any team could possibly offer, but the way that we are diagnosing that data, the way we are using that data has not been proper and it's been imbalanced. So what he's basically saying is the people that are gathering all this information, which is top of the line, world class, the people that are actually taking this data and trying to apply it to the players they're not doing a good job of that. So in my opinion, that kind of means that we're going to see some overhaul in the analytics department and probably align them with the coaching staff. And that's what good teams do. If you have really great analytics is a tool, right? You can't just produce numbers and then suddenly results follow. You have to take those analytics and put them into work, put them into action. The Yankees have failed to do that properly over the last couple years. So, when you look at what Judge is saying here, he wants to attack some of the variables here that maybe they're ignoring, right? The small ball part of the game, hitting with runners on base, moving a guy over, hitting in clutch positions. There's a lot of stuff that the Yankees have done poorly. They're like, if we hit home runs enough times, we can win a lot of games, so we'll score a lot of runs, right? Theoretically, it makes sense, but the problem is we haven't appeared in a World Series in over a decade. So I guess by most accounts, we probably haven't reached that potential that we so hope to achieve through the analytics kind of variance there. But I'll tell you this, Ryan, like when you're looking at the analytics specifically, how do you think they can align the coaching staff with the guys that are actually gathering that data? Because I'm sure everyone's heard horror stories about how the analytics has messed things up, the improper approaches they've taken, the poor strategies they put in place. When it comes to Sean Casey and bringing back Aaron Boone, how do they align that with the guys in the analytics rooms trying to actually feed that information to the players and get them to get the best out of themselves? Because the players, we saw a lot of underwhelming performances this year, bat speed fall-offs. There's so many things that, you've written about and other people have referenced. And now we're kind of asking ourselves, why does it seem like everyone on the Yankees on a different page? Why did everyone on the Yankees seem like they don't know what anyone else is doing? How do you think they go about realigning everything so that way, they can get the most out of everybody?
So, kind of looking at what the Yankees struggled with, again, velocity, breaking pitches, all that stuff. I don't know what exactly is the perfect fix. Like, I think hitting is more nuanced than just, all right, the Yankees struggle with velocity, everybody's got to go do bat speed training. Certain teams, certain players, certain, guys need different things, right? And I imagine that, certain players are going to tweak how they do things over the offseason based on their performance this year, especially considering it was just not the year we were looking for, right? Like, yes, last year the Yankees got swept in the ALCS. That wasn't great. I understand. But they made the playoffs, right? Like, they were a good team. They won their division, right? Like, making the playoffs and losing in the playoffs, for as much as we can be frustrated by it, is not a failure inherently, like in the way that you would look at this year as a failure. This year is like okay, we got to look at everything we're doing and just question it all right now. And still, it's not bottom of the barrel stuff. You could have lost 100 games. You could have finished in last place. You could have, things could have gotten a lot worse. And thankfully, you are the New York Yankees. You have an incredible financial advantage over a lot of teams. You have two guys in Garrett Cole and Aaron Judge who are, either the best position player on the planet or the best pitcher on the planet, arguably. And ultimately, I think that stuff matters. I think you're headed in the right direction in terms of just you have talent, and that's what matters. But as you alluded to, like, there needs to be some sort of adjustments for certain guys. I don't think that adjustment's going to be the Yankees are going to come out next year and just like not care about hitting home runs. Until the industry stops caring about that, the Yankees are going to keep caring about that, right? Again, I compare it to the 3-point shot. I compare it to passing the NFL. Until the league as a whole decides these things aren't valuable, teams are going to keep chasing it, right? Like, this is a copycat league. Teams just do what other teams are doing, right? And that's usually to their benefit. This is a business. They're trying to make money. They're trying to win games. So it's not like they're just throwing darts at a wall and saying, hey, well, we're going to try this year. But ultimately, I think bat speed, as you mentioned, is a big thing. I've been just slamming my fist on the table about it. I think the Yankees are just kind of slow, right? Like, you can't be the slowest team in baseball. You can't have like the second worst average in baseball, and you can't do these things and win games at a high rate, right? You were ninth in home runs. It's not like you were first. You know what I mean? Like, last year's team, they hit home runs. They led the league in home runs, right? So being average at everything else was fine, And I know they broke down the postseason. I understand, but for the most part, right? Like, for 90% of the regular season, they were a very, very, very good offense. They finished second in runs scored. That's what happened, right? And ultimately, I think you and I can agree in the sense of they don't feel too far away. Like, you just saw what Austin Wells did for the last 10 games. He looked awesome, right? Anthony Volpe's had stretches where you're like, yeah, he looks awesome. Oswald Peraza will randomly just hit a ball 110 miles an hour, and you're like, wow, okay, he's got good power. But, you need to fine tune, right? And I think that's kind of the word that would best describe what the Yankees are going to do this offseason. They need to fine-tune things. I don't think they're too far off the path. I think it's just a matter of just those small little adjustments that they're not making, or they haven't made, or the small questions they haven't been asking. Maybe they haven't been asking the right questions. Maybe they've been asking the wrong ones. Maybe they haven't been asking enough questions. Who knows? But I think this offseason is more about fine-tuning than just like, all right, fire everybody, hire everybody else, and then just hope that it works. I think it's a matter of just fine-tuning, and I think that that's kind of the theme of this offseason. I know that there's a lot of questions that we're going to ask, that we're going to have answered, that we're maybe not going to have answered, but, I'm not going to speculate too much on, like, what they need. I'm not going to speculate too much on, like, okay, we need to just tear it all down until I'm given, like, a really genuinely terrible Yankee team, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think you need to tear it. When you say tear it down, the way that I perceive what the Yankees actually have to do, they don't have to change how they're gathering all the analytics and data, right? They don't have to change the process of actually acquiring the information to use. That's not the problem here. The problem is how they're using the information, right? It's not the information itself. So, in my perspective, and I think what the Yankees are going to do, they're going to clean that analytics department out, bro. I think that they're going to clean it out. And I think that they're going to replace them with guys that they go and take from, I don't know, like let's say you have assistant, top analytics guy for the Rays or the Astros or whatever it might be. They're going to go target those guys. And they're going to say, look, you're coming in here because our previous guys did not know how to use the information correctly. How do you plan to use it? And Ryan, for what it's worth, whoever they go in and actually look to hire, I think that they should have direct conversations with Aaron Judge, direct conversations with Boone during the hiring process. You know what I mean? I think that during the hiring process, they need to be involved, considering the fact that we were assuming that, Boone is probably not on the hot seat. Maybe some people think he should be, but I don't think he really is. I think that Judge, though, is the link between what the players are experiencing and what the coaches think they're applying, right? There's a big difference between what they're actually understanding and what they're gathering from this analytical data and what the coaches think they're training these guys to accomplish. So Judge being that intermediary, being that middleman to connect them with the hitters and say, look, for me, I have my own hitting coach, right? I go out there and I just swing the freaking hell out of the bat and I am really freaking talented, but not everybody has the skill set to walk at a 15+% clip and hit 45+ homers every single season and hit, 100 RBIs and, maintain patience and hit for contact and hit in clutch situations. Not everybody has every single one of those toolboxes checked off. Every single one of those boxes checked off. Some players only have 2 or 3 of those boxes, if not only one of those boxes. So how do you take the data and filter it to each individual player? And I think that Judge, having developed over time and not had all of these skills at the same time every single year, I think can give you a little bit of insight into, how you can take that information and apply it to specific hitters, because he's taken drastic steps forward. And Ryan, I want to get your take on one quote that Aaron Judge had. And, it's not verbatim, but I remember he said one thing specific maybe yesterday or a couple days ago. He said that just because you get to the MLB doesn't mean that you get to stop improving, right? I think that was a really great line from Aaron Judge, because it goes to show that a lot of players get to the MLB and that's where it stops for them. They're like, I made it. Now I can stay here. But a lot of times that's not the case. And a lot of times you have to keep improving. And I feel like that was a subliminal message from Judge to a couple of his teammates. What do you think about that? Because I felt like, for him to say that, why would you say that unless he was hitting on players specifically in his mind maybe that are not improving and have gotten to the MLB and have stopped putting in that effort? What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I fully agree. Like I think one of the biggest problems with the Yankees is you can kind of just show up as a veteran and just get a job, right? Like your job is secure, you're fine. Josh Donaldson kept his third base job anytime he was actually healthy. And I think that's crazy, right? Like, he had a bad 2022 season, and then he got to continue to play over Oswald Peraza. I think that's crazy. Like, why does he deserve to get those reps? You have to update your resume. This is the big leagues, right? This is the New York Yankees. This is Major League Baseball, right? Winning a World Series happens by, creating some sort of incentive to get better, right? I think it's kind of damning that Aaron Judge, who, again, not a very outspoken guy until like 2 weeks ago, starts coming out and is like, hey, there's a lack of urgency. There is not that high level of urgency. that reflects poorly on the players. Now, that isn't something you can't fix, right? Like, it's not like Aaron Judge. I think it would be more damning if Aaron Judge was like, yeah, I hate this city or something like that. Like, he would obviously never say that, but, that's what, panic mode, like, nuclear red, like, things are all wrong, it's all over type of, talking would be like. I think he's just giving a fair and honest assessment of what happened this year. And I agree. Like, next year, Giancarlo Stanton's probably going to walk into spring training with the job in hand. I think that's crazy. He didn't earn that job. He didn't play well this year. He's not a good player. Right now, he's not a good player. And you can't earn a job coming off a year where you were a negative WAR player all year. Like, you don't even have the injury excuse. I also feel that way about the rotation. I know Michael King's coming off a poor start, but as a starter, he did a really good job. I don't see why guys should walk in who were hurt last year and didn't perform well last year, or I guess this year, and say, all right, this is our spring training job. Like, this is our spring training. Like, these are our jobs. Like, we're going to just walk into the rotation. Clark Schmidt threw 159 innings this year. Michael King was healthy all year, right? Like, those two guys get priority over anybody coming in who was hurt last year, didn't perform last year, failed to make it through the full season. I'm sorry, that's just how it's got to go, right? Like, you can't just hand jobs to people. You can't. If you do that, you create the aforementioned lack of urgency that Aaron Judge talked about. Adjustments have to be made. I'd go as far as to say that, if there are guys on that team, and I won't get into specifics with certain guys and their bat speed issues that don't want to work on their bat speed over the offseason, you say, all right, we're not going to start you next year then. We'll find somebody. We'll find somebody willing to buy in. You need to get buy-in as an organization, right? It's not like the Yankees are the only team using analytics. It's not like the Yankees are the only team that's ever thought about hit strikes hard. That's an industry standard, right? But the difference is the Braves get buy-in. The Rays get buy-in. The Dodgers get buy-in, right? Like, their players buy into it. The Yankees players didn't buy into it. They clearly don't buy into, they clearly didn't buy into what the Yankees were preaching. That's why they fired their hitting coach midseason. That's why, we're sitting here talking about, hey, is Sean Casey going to come back? What's it going to look like, right? You need to get buy-in from your guys. You need to have that sense of urgency. It worked well for the pitching staff. I mean, remember like 2 or 3 years ago, Jay Happ coming out of the bullpen in a playoff game and saying afterwards, and he stunk in that game, I'm a starter, I'm not a reliever, this is not what I do, right? That was really bad at the time. It was like, hey, you couldn't get your guys to buy in. You gave Matt Blake those 3 to 4 years, and now guys buy in. Does Johnny Brito say after a great outing, yeah, I'm actually a starter, not a bolt guy, so this is not what I do? No, he just comes out of the bullpen and shoves, right? Randy Vasquez, kind of unconventional role, starter and a reliever at times, and he still thrived. King, he was shifting from the reliever to the starting rotation. He thrived. Getting buy-in, getting guys to say, I trust this organization process-wise is important. But that comes from the players, and it comes from the coaches, it comes from everybody, front office, all that stuff. This has to be a collaborative process. I hope that that's the steps they take next year. It's not a hard fix. It is something that, I think the Yankees are more than capable of fixing. And again, like as I said kind of a million times here, I'm not sitting here and saying that the Yankees, they have problems and therefore they're not going to be good next year. I'm just saying they have problems. They have to fix those problems. And it's perfectly reasonable to assume that they have what it takes to evaluate, find the problem, and then fix the problem. If I can find it, they 100% can find it. That's their job. That's not my job. You know what I mean? So, I'm more than confident that they know what their issues are. Now it's just a matter of fixing them.
Yeah, I mean, look, right now you look at what the Yankees have to do, and it's a lot. But it's not impossible. This is a process that, if they do it right, could be very beneficial for the long-term success of this team. And it really comes down to, can they be objective? Can the front office take this data from the third-party evaluation, be objective, make the decisions, make the tough choices? Because ultimately, that's what's going to take. Cashman still has to make the choice at the end of the day. Steinbrenner still has to make the choice at the end of the day. This third-party evaluation is not going to recommend what they do. It's just going to give them the information and say, this is what happened, this is what was wrong. You decide what you have to do. So, again, it's all in their hands. The destiny, they keep, you know what, Ryan, how many times do we see Boone say, the destiny is in our hands, right? It's in our hands. We have the chance to go out and win this thing. We have the chance to go make the playoffs. Our destiny is in our hands. Right now, the front office has to say the same things to themselves. That's ultimately the truth. They got to say to themselves, our destiny is in our own hands, and ultimately they have to make the choices, the tough ones, that get us back on track. It's going to suck. They're probably going to have to fire a lot of people, but sometimes that has to happen if people aren't doing a good job. Like, that's just business at the end of the day. But guys, love to hear your perspectives below in the YouTube comments. As always, make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.